Less than 150 days from now, the state of Oklahoma is expected to announce who will become the first person to be executed in Oklahoma in 5 years. And as Jason Doyle reports, there are those who fully support that idea and others who remain adamantly opposed to it.
If the crime was bad enough, we need to get rid of them. They're not going to be rehabilitated.
I think there are better ways to respond in situations such as this.
A grieving father, a church leader find themselves on opposite sides of an emotional issue. Oklahoma was the first state to use lethal injections in 1990, but that form of execution was put on hold in January of 2015 after 2 executions had troubled outcomes. OETA was there for Clayton Lockett's execution, which took nearly 45 minutes to complete.
At 6:37, he says something's wrong. At 6:39, he's still lifting his shoulders and head off the gurney, grimacing.
Now, Governor Kevin Stitt and Attorney General Mike Hunter say the state has secured a reliable supply of medications needed to resume lethal injections. Archbishop Paul S. Coakley is disappointed.
Goes against a trend, I think, that is nationwide, and I think a growing trend in Oklahoma, that people are recognizing that the death penalty only contributes to the cycle of violence.
Coakley says it's important to point out that many families are crying out for justice in the face of a heinous crime.
And many of them think that the death penalty is going to alleviate some of the suffering that they have endured. And yet I think in the end, many of those families realize that the death penalty is not going to bring their loved ones back, and it's ultimately not going to bring healing to them.
Tammy, she was the joy of my life.
Charles Erwin disagrees. His daughter Tammy was murdered in 1989 by a serial killer after she left home to find a job in California.
Got in a car with this guy, and he took her out into the desert and did some really horrible things to her, and then shot her 5 times and kicked her out in the middle of the road and left.
It took years to track down Tammy's killer.
The suspect was not caught until 1997. Had no idea from 89 to 97 who had killed her. They had no leads, no nothing.
The killer admitted to 8 murders in 3 states.
On his first trial, he was convicted. He was given the death penalty, was on death row, and the governor, going out of office, gave all the death row inmates clemency as his last wish as governor.
The murderer was found dead in his cell in California as he was waiting on an appeal. Erwin feels the death penalty gives justice to victims of those who commit the most deadly of crimes.
I agree totally with the governor bringing it back. We've got too many people on death row. They're just sitting there. We're paying for them to eat and sleep and medical and all that stuff. And why are we spending all the money for them and their victims are dead? They've got no recourse. They've got, they didn't get anything.
But a bill by Representative Jason Dunnington would end the practice of executions as ultimate punishment in Oklahoma.
We're a culture that's moving away from the death penalty right now because of all of the troubles that we've seen with it.
Dunnington believes the death penalty is not a deterrent to crime.
There's no empirical evidence that anyone has been able to show that having capital punishment as a sentencing option actually deters crime.
We offer support for families that have lost people due to a homicide.
Lauren Lehman is the president of the Oklahoma Homicide Survivor Support Group. She says the reinstatement of lethal injections in Oklahoma has affected members of the group.
As a group, we sat down and talked about it. As you can imagine, there are probably mixed feelings amongst a group of people. So at this point, we're waiting to see how it turns out before we take a stance. But I will say that everyone in our group supports each victim. And each victim needs justice differently.
Lehman's great-grandmother was murdered during a home break-in. Her killer died before facing justice. And while personally Lehman isn't a staunch supporter of the death penalty, she does believe it's a necessary tool of justice.
One thing that I know is we would have, had we have gotten a trial, we would have asked for the death penalty in my case, because I know that that's what my family would have wanted.
Both sides of the issue have their points. Because of the mistakes that can be made not only in the execution chamber, but in the justice system, Coakley says the death penalty can lead to killing an innocent person.
Which is a frightening thing, to think that we could execute the wrong person. So I think we need to think twice about the need and the advisability, as well as the risk of executing criminals.
Erwin believes the death penalty can still serve as a deterrent.
I really believe if they start doing the death penalty, that it's going to slow things down. People are going to realize, hey, if I get caught, I'm going to die.
Jason Doyle, the Oklahoma News Report.
Representative Dunnington's bill to abolish the death penalty must be heard by the end of next week. If not, it would be set aside for the session.